your support. I have the feeling that her support means a lot to the people in this room, so it's very, very much appreciated. And Tom, for the legwork that it takes in putting something like this together. I know it just doesn't happen. I've done it myself for other friends as well. And to all of you for making time on a Friday for this kid from Pacoima. You know, I say that because, you know, a lot of people think, oh, you know, there's a senator from Los Angeles visiting. What does he want? What does she want? You know, so the area I grew up in is a neighborhood called Pacoima. If you've ever seen La Bamba, that's my hometown. So a minute on who I am, where I'm from. A minute on you know, why Secretary of State, and a minute on sort of the Central Valley in between there. I'd love to answer some questions before we'll have to move on with our day. But my life story in 60 seconds or less. Born and raised in the Northeast San Fernando Valley. My parents are immigrants from Mexico. My father's from Puerto Vallarta. My mom's from Chihuahua. My father finally retired a couple of years ago after nearly 40 years as a short order cook. He worked his way from dishwasher to cook in diners in and around Los Angeles. My mother used to clean houses. So a humble upbringing, modest upbringing, just, you know, to put it mildly. I'm a product of public schools, Little League baseball, a lot of love at home, but even more discipline. Somebody put it in my head when I was in high school that I had to be an engineer. I used to like math. And so I went to MIT. Came back with a mechanical engineering degree 4 winters later. And it looks great on the wall, but I thank God every day I found my way to public service because I was telling some folks earlier, I take my job personal. The district I represent is home. It's where I grew up. So when we talk about education, you know, I visit the schools that I went to when I was a kid. When we talk about, you know, park programs in our communities or libraries, you know, I go back to the places where, you know, I spent time as a kid. When we talk about public safety, you know, I think about the ups and downs of the neighborhood that I grew up in. And so I take my job seriously. After 7.5 years on the city council in Los Angeles, and now 7.5 years as a state senator, working on 8, you know, I feel a calling and a draw to run for Secretary of State. Why? A couple of things. I think we need to modernize that office first and foremost. While the office is usually known for elections administration and voter registration and all the good democracy things, the largest unit of the Secretary of State's office is actually the business unit. So anybody who wants to start a company in California, or even a nonprofit for that matter, step number 1 is to incorporate. And unfortunately, for the better part of the last 10 years, the turnaround time for that paperwork, for those approvals, has been anywhere between 13 and 43 days. Think about that. For people who want to invest, for people who want to create jobs, to say, oh, thank you for your papers, we'll be back in touch in a couple of weeks or a couple of months. That's just wrong. There's got to be a way utilizing technology to make that process much more effective, much more efficient, as they do in other states. So that's going to be one of my top priorities. Maintaining voting rights. You know, we saw what was happening in the last presidential election. Voter suppression efforts, not here in California, but in other states. I think California candidates should be sort of the counterexample on how to make it more convenient, secure, but convenient to register and convenient to participate in our democracy. Everybody, Democrats and Republicans, can agree with that. But before I open up to questions, just a couple of the sort of Central Valley credentials. This isn't my first stop. This isn't my first visit. I've been through the Valley over the years. One of my jobs after college and before you know, getting into the campaign work was as a upward bound counselor at the University of the Pacific in Stockton. But then I got dragged back to Los Angeles and went through a fellowship program and ended up on a political campaign. But that's okay. The campaign work wasn't just a couple of legislative races in Southern California. In the 1998 cycle, a gentleman by the name of Greg Davis asked me to be his Southern California field director. So he gave me a budget to work with. I had 13 offices between Fresno and National City, 40 organizers working for us that year. And obviously he was successful in that venture. And instead of waiting for the phone call of what position I can serve the administration in, I decided to run myself. So I ran for city council the very next year to represent home, and it's been a great run, from energy issues to infrastructure issues, health issues, public safety issues, and you know, voting rights issues, among many others. So trying to put that experience and skill set to work, the relationships to work, not just on the campaign, but with your support as your next Secretary of State.